Thank you, Sawyer. I'd like to welcome all the members today to the Joint Full Committee. We'll be hearing two budgets this morning, the Governor's Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology, OSIT, and also the Governor's Office of Workforce Innovation, or OWIN. We will have an IFC meeting upon adjournment of this Joint Full Committee, and we want to move directly into the next budget. So we need to move directly into that after this. So as a result, and it's in a very important IFC that we really need to get some funding approved for Nevadans. And so we need to move through this, and this is for the presenters and for the committee. We need to move through these budgets very efficiently this morning and try to do it in a timely fashion and get on the record what needs to be on the record, but move through it as quickly as we can. And so with that, I want to make sure I do not miss it this time. I need to call roll. So if please, Mr. Thorley, if you'd call roll. Or actually, it would be the committee secretary. Please call roll.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Here.
Assemblyman Frierson.
Here.
Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Here.
Assemblyman Hafen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Here.
Assemblyman Levitt.
Here.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Here.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Here.
Assemblywoman Peters.
Here.
Assemblyman Roberts.
Here.
Assemblywoman Titus.
Here.
Assemblywoman Tolles.
Here.
Assemblyman Watts.
Here.
Senator Cannizzaro.
Here.
Senator Dennis.
Here.
Senator Dondero Loop.
Here.
Senator Goycochea.
Here.
Senator Hammond.
Present.
Senator Kekeffer.
Here.
Senator Ratty.
Here.
Senator Severs-Gansert.
Here.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Here.
Chair Brooks.
Here. Thank you. All the members are present, and I also want to remind the public on how they can participate on the phones. And if you on our agenda, it has the information for call in, and also on our legislative website, the Nevada Legislature, on the Nellis section, it has at the top there's a banner that you can click on that gives all the instructions on how to sign in today. And so if you plan on making public comment at the end of this meeting, just listen for the last three numbers of your phone number to be recognized. I also would like to remind the members, please put your question, if you have a question you want to be recognized, please put that in the chat for this Zoom meeting, the actual Zoom chat. And I'll try not to skip over and recognize you so we can get some questions answered. So first up, we have the Governor's Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology. And I believe we have Director Mitchell, who will be giving a presentation this morning. And Director Mitchell, if you could please give the presentation, and please keep in mind that we really need to try to be concise and move through this as quick as we can. Appreciate it. Director Mitchell, go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much, Chairman Brooks and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be with you. And
Director Mitchell, you were very quiet, very quiet.
all right, I'll speak up. Is this better?
It's a little bit better, but yeah, still very, very quiet.
All right, I will speak very loudly. And for the record, I'm Brian Mitchell, Director of the Governor's Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology, and I will share my screen. Can you view my screen?
Mr. Mitchell, this is Broadcasting Productions. We can view the screen. As far as your microphone issues, you may need to scoot a little bit closer to the microphone, like you said, and speak up unless you have another microphone handy.
All right, I'll speak up as best as I can. I apologize for the technical difficulties. This always seems to happen whenever it's important. Again, I'm Brian Mitchell, the Director of the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology, and I'll try to move through this as quickly as I can so you can move on to your other business. You can find our office in NRS 223, which is where our statutory authority is. Our mission is twofold, related to broadband and STEM, or science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We seek to broaden participation in STEM at every level of education, from kindergarten all the way up through post-secondary and workforce development, so that Nevada has a diverse and skilled workforce that meets the needs of its employers. On the broadband side, we seek to coordinate the planning, mapping, and procurement of broadband to ensure that all of our communities have the connectivity that they need in order to meet national standards. I won't read through all of these objectives, but this slide goes in a little bit more specifically into the specific objectives that we have. Here is our organizational chart. We're a small and mighty state office of 4 dedicated state employees, and our activities can be essentially broken down into the following: STEM education and workforce development, growing STEM interest and awareness, working with and staffing the STEM Advisory Council, and broadband infrastructure development. We also oversee graduate medical education grants, but that is in budget account 1301, and so we will be presenting that at another day to you. So I wanted to jump right in to talk a little bit about what we do in STEM education. Our STEM initiatives are as follows. We work to develop teacher capacity. We do a lot of professional development for our educators. We work with schools to develop STEM schools. We support schools in providing high quality curriculum leading to in-demand credentials. We also work with the workforce development and post-secondary systems so that our students have the skills they need in order to meet the demands of STEM employment. And we seek to increase collaboration between industry, education, and the government. Most of our STEM initiatives are funded out of Category 10, and I will go through each one of these individually. I want to make a note that in our budget, the enhancement that's related to Category 10 is not an ask for any new or increased funding from prior years. Rather, the ask is to restore funding to previous biennial levels that have been approved for a number of biennia, but it's not an increase in the historical funding. The first one I want to talk about is our STEM Workforce Challenge Grants. This is a competitive grant program to create or expand middle skills post-secondary training programs. Middle skills meaning below a bachelor's degree, so at an associate or credential level. During the current biennium, we've awarded 3 grants, one to the College of Southern Nevada to enhance their Associates of Applied Sciences and Environmental Management, one to Western Nevada College so that they could start a paramedicine certificate program, which has been very helpful during the pandemic. And finally, to the William B. Ryrie Hospital in Ely and Great Basin College, they're starting a joint venture to start an Associate of Registered Nursing program in Ely, which is a first for that community. And that's one that I'm really excited about. The high school is hosting the program, the college is teaching, and the hospital is providing all of the equipment and work-based learning, and will hire all of the graduates. So it's a great program for kids in that community. Over the years, we've awarded 33 different programs in the fields listed. And as we do these programs, we coordinate with GOED, ON, the Department of Education and DETR on these grants to ensure that our efforts are aligned and that we are working together to build a cohesive workforce development system. Over the years, we've awarded 15 grants to Clark County, 9 grants to grantees in Washoe County, and 9 to the rurals. One of the things I'm most proud of is that we require a diversity action plan for these grants. And over half of the students so far enrolled in these 33 programs have been students that could be considered underrepresented in STEM. So either underrepresented in gender or race and ethnicity, or maybe students of poverty, etc. Moving on is our STEM Workforce Development Talent Pipeline Grant. This is a program that I'm really excited about. It's a newer program that we started last biennium. It's a competitive program that creates STEM programs that are a little bit different than the STEM Workforce Challenge grants. So they have 3 different elements. They begin in high school. They provide training that leads to a post-secondary credential in a STEM field. They provide a work-based learning experience. And then the employer partner in the program agrees to provide that work-based learning experience and a job interview to every completer. And these result in students graduating shortly after high school with a recognized credential or degree. So we require a high school partner, a post-secondary partner, and an employer partner to come together to form a consortium to apply. Thus far, we've awarded 5 grants this biennium. Blockchains is working with 1 school, high school in Washoe County, 1 school in Fallon, and 3 high schools in Las Vegas to develop a junior blockchain developer program. Great Basin College is working in Elko on a construction technologies and HVAC program. Join is working in 3 different rural counties to develop a medical professionals program in a variety of different entry-level medical professionals with renown. Nevada Help Desk is the one that I'm really excited about, and I'll highlight here. I don't know if any of you know Duana Malone, but she is a great tech entrepreneur in Clark County, and she started this program, and she committed to providing entry-level IT certifications to students, to underrepresented students. So they recruit primarily from the JAG program, and they also recruit from high schools in wards 3 and 5 primarily. And so it's students that are in poverty and students in need. Thus far, or in her application, she committed to recruiting 65 kids for the program, and she recruited those 65 and then found another 75 on top of that. So this program is really progressing very well, and they are providing entry-level IT certifications to those students. And then finally, Truckee Meadows Community College is working with Tesla in advanced manufacturing. In the future, the System of Higher Education received a youth apprenticeship grant from the federal government. It's I believe it's $2.5 million grant. And we're going to be, and they've used our program as a model for that grant, and we're going to be partnering together to leverage and extend those federal dollars to combine with state dollars to create more of these programs in the future. Moving on, another initiative of ours is our regional STEM networks. One of the things that we wanted to do was to develop a more local presence and build local capacity in STEM. And so I looked around the country for best practices, and there are 13 other states that have regional STEM networks or regional hubs that provide support to local actors. So we looked at states like Massachusetts, Iowa, Washington, Tennessee, and Ohio to develop a regional STEM network system in Nevada. You can see on the left the duties of the networks, and so far our accomplishments, we have formed 3 regional advisory committees. We've formed subcommittees in each region of the state. So we have a Northwest region, a Southern region, and a rural region. And these subcommittees are working on increasing equity, awareness, and high-quality programming in the regions. We had a STEM summit last year that was very successful, in which we developed regional strategic directions or strategic plans for each region. and have now been awarding capacity building grants to local STEM programs to further build up their programs. Moving on, I want to talk a little bit about the STEM professional learning that we do for our educators. And we truly believe that educators are the most important part of our STEM ecosystem. And so the first one that the first program that we have that I'll highlight today is a STEM teacher and administrator workforce training program called our STEM Leaders Academy. So schools that are interested in becoming a governor designated STEM school can go through this academy, and it provides them with instruction on how to structure their school environment, their classroom environment, and their interactions with the community to align with best practices that the state has identified. You can see our participants thus far in the program, and we're very excited about the schools that are going to be graduating this spring, and they'll begin implementing their strategic plans in the summer. Thus far, we have 30 governor designated STEM schools around the state, and it's exciting to start to get applications from alumni of our STEM Leaders Academy for that distinguished honor. Next, we have our Engineering Fellows Program. This is a training program for teachers to develop and integrate NGSS-aligned engineering lessons into the everyday teaching that they have. You can see below the list of participants that we've had during the last 2 years. And this program is broken up into 2 phases. In the first phase, teachers learn how to assess whether a lesson that they're teaching is high quality, and then they learn tools to improve the quality of their existing lessons. Then in phase 2, teachers collaborate with engineering students from UNR and UNI.
I apologize for the interruption, committee. Mr. Mitchell, it seems like you seemed to freeze for a second there. Can you confirm that you can hear us again?
I can. Can you hear me?
We can. Please proceed.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about our K-5 STEM grant program. And before I do, did I freeze during this slide? Or if not, I'll move on. Okay. So a little bit of history here. We, in doing some research, we know that we even did some investigations, and we found out that it's very important to introduce children to science and engineering and math early on in their childhood. Many students lose interest in STEM, or they begin to think that either STEM is not for them, or that they're not good at math, or that science isn't very interesting very early on in their childhoods. And thus, it becomes difficult in high school to recruit them into our wonderful STEM and CTE programs if they've already lost an interest back in elementary school. And so in 2017, we came to IFC with private grant funding to do a pilot program with our K-5 STEM grant program, and that was approved. And then in 2019, the legislature approved money for this program. And so the goal of the program is to increase the number of students participating in STEM programs later in their years by introducing them to high quality STEM in elementary school. So here are our objectives. We did during this past biennium, but prior to the pandemic, we were able to award grants in 2 different categories. One is a classroom grant that's targeted at individual classrooms for teachers who want to do an innovative approach to teaching STEM. And so we awarded 12 grants there. And then we have program grants, which are larger, and those are school level grants for schools interested in purchasing and implementing high quality evidence-based STEM programs. And we were able to award 15 programs there. And the total student impact of this program is a little over 8,000 students. We did we had the Raggio Center at UNR conduct an independent evaluation of this program and found that both student interest in STEM as well as student content knowledge increased in schools prior to the implementation of these programs. And so certainly there were a lot of many high quality and very good programs that were cut during the pandemic. And this was one of the programs that was cut because it was funded via a one-shot appropriation. And so one of the things that I wanted to put on the record for you all is I'd like to have a conversation sometime in the future about possibly using some of our existing funding to continue this program. I don't know what the best way to do that is, whether it might be coming back to IFC and working with your staff on that. But I just wanted to at least start a conversation with you now about possibly using existing funding that we have. So not asking for new money, but using existing funding that we have to possibly reallocate to this program. And that's, I think, a conversation that I can begin to have with your staff, and we can come back to you at an appropriate time, unless there's any reservations that anyone has with that. Moving on, I'll briefly highlight some of our broadband initiatives. Our broadband initiatives can be grouped into 4 different categories: connecting schools and libraries, connecting kids at home, connecting rural healthcare, and connecting communities. With regard to our connecting schools and libraries, we work with every school district and charter schools throughout the state to provide technical assistance or customized consulting to improve the connectivity in school buildings. We assist with internal and external network design. We provide application assistance for federal E-rate funding in order to increase the amount of funding that we receive as a state. Just a brief aside, E-rate is the federal program that provides funding for broadband for schools, both to bring connections to the school building as well as improve connections within the school building. So on the screen, you'll see a brief summary of our efforts and accomplishments. What I'll highlight is that we have assisted school districts apply for over $26 million in federal funding, which is an increase of 43% over 2016 when we started this program. Over 500,000 feet of new fiber has been built in the state. And one of the results of this program is that schools are paying less for faster bandwidth. And so we've seen both an increase in speeds and a decrease in the amount of monthly recurring costs that they're having to spend, which has been fantastic. And all of our schools are currently scalable to meet the FCC standard for connectivity. And we're in a good position for when the FCC raises that connectivity standard again to be able to continue to help schools stay connected. I know you're interested in where we've been able to help schools and where the money has gone. And so you'll see here the funding impact by city, as well as the number of students that have been impacted. If you see a star by some of those cities like Amargosa Valley and Austin and Beatty and so on, that's because that was a library and not a school or a school district that did the funding. So we didn't count students in those counts for that. And then here you'll see the amount of E-rate funding that was requested by district, as well as for districts that had new fiber being built, where that fiber is being built throughout the state. So as with the pandemic, many things changed, and certainly we suddenly went from helping schools get connected to helping students get connected wherever they were learning, which was at their home. Actually, before we talk about that, I did want to say that we've awarded several grants so far this biennium, and we have a grant funding cycle going on right now. But these are the the grant recipients that we've awarded thus far. All right, so connecting kids at home. So we went from primarily working with school district IT directors and school superintendents, school district superintendents to connect school buildings to helping connect kids where they are at home. We have worked very closely with the governor's COVID-19 task force and the Nevada Department of Education to bring to help students find or school districts find hotspots for students in need, as well as Chromebooks or other laptops that will connect students. We certainly made a lot of calls to different technology vendors in search of Chromebooks that meet the state's specify or meet the individual district specifications. We also worked with the Department of Education to distribute hotspots that were a part of the state's T-Mobile settlement. And then one very innovative project that we're working on right now with the city of Las Vegas is a project wherein they are using bandwidth from the city in order to provide connectivity solutions to students in their homes. And we were able to work with the city and the state to provide some CARES Act dollars to fund that initiative, which has been really great for those kids. And I view that as a model for a long-term, more of a long-term solution for kids. Moving on, we also work a lot with rural healthcare. I won't say a whole lot about this, other than we're working to increase the infrastructure and the capacity to do telemedicine, particularly in rural areas where many Nevadans have to travel multiple hours to get to a doctor or a pharmacy. And so we've been working particularly with our partners in Native American tribes, and that's been a wonderful process to see them get connected to telemedicine. Finally, as we're going about connecting schools and libraries and rural health clinics, we also want to do our best to connect communities. So the businesses, local government, and residential communities. And so on the right, you'll see the participants in our whole community connectivity program, wherein we bring together a local broadband committee to put together a strategic plan to increase both effective and reliable broadband service for their communities. Each of these communities, we've been able to leverage federal dollars to be able to increase connectivity and also be able to aggregate demand in order to incentivize private providers to come in and increase their infrastructure investments. Ely and Elko have been great examples of what we've been able to do so far. Finally, here's just a brief summary of our legislative performance measures. And I'll say the same thing I said earlier about Category 10 grants. We are requesting to restore funding for these programs to the levels that they were funded in the previous biennium. So again, the enhancement that you'll see here is not an increase in funding over historical levels, but rather just to maintain our existing programs. When the pandemic hit, OSA took the 19% budget cut along with everyone else, but we were also requested that any unspent grant dollars that we had, that we stop our grant processes and not spend those. And so we actually ended up taking closer to a 30 or 35% budget cut. And that, and so that's why you'll see some of the spending from FY20 as being a bit lower than it has been historically. And so with that, I'll stop sharing my screen. And here's my contact information if anyone would like to get in touch with me offline, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have right now.
Thank you, Director Mitchell. We do have several questions. Start with Majority Leader Benitez Thompson. Then we have a few after that.
I do. Thank you, Chairman. And it was actually just perfect because I think the last sentence gave me some insight to the question I was going to ask. And so I heard you saying that you stopped spending on grants as well, and that might explain why there was some lower spending in 2020. And that was kind of the question I had, because the reversions in 2019 and 2020 actual were a little bit more than I would imagine they would be. And I was going to ask about kind of why I saw that we had in 2019 and 2020, I didn't know if there was a higher use of grant dollars, but then it sounds like there might not have been. So I was wondering if you could just walk us through that.
Certainly. So the many of our grants are awarded in the spring, and so we do our solicitations in the kind of the late winter, early spring, which was right around the time the pandemic hit. And those the timing of that is due to most of our partners with our school districts have told us that that's the best time for them to apply for and receive funding. And so as soon as the pandemic hit, the governor's finance office asked all state agencies to cease any non-essential spending. And then in particular, the governor's finance office asked our office that if we had any unobligated grant funds, that we hold those for additional budget savings or reversions. And so we put a stop to several of so we had several grants that we had already obligated, and we were paying on those. And so we were allowed to continue spending on those grants. But but for grants that we hadn't signed an award agreement yet with, we put a stop to the process, and then we reverted all of our remaining funds at the request of GFO.
I appreciate that information. For the record, I find that interesting in all kinds of ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Next, we have Senator Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's talk about the broadband state match program. Can you talk about how many applications did you receive in the most recent rounds?
Yes, thank you for the question, Senator Dennis. Brian Mitchell for the record. We received we received 7 applications. And let me scroll back up to there. And so the recipients thus far were Douglas County, Elko, North Las Vegas, Eureka, Nye, Shoshone-Paiute Tribe, the Elko Lander Eureka Library System, and then 2 charter schools, Amplis Academy and Girls Athletic Leadership School. And then we have another solicitation out right now, and we expect that we will be making our final awards later this month.
So how much so far has been requested total wise?
I believe we're right around $250,000 obligated, which leaves us with about another $200,000 left to spend this fiscal year.
Okay, and then talk a little bit about what's the process that you go through to approve grants?
Sure. So first we issue a solicitation, and Brian Mitchell for the record, excuse me. So the first thing we do is we issue a solicitation, and then we provide a question and answer period for that solicitation. And then after that, once the solicitation closes, we assemble a grant review committee made up of experts from the state, from around the state, and the experts independently review each of the grants and score them, and then they forward those scores to OSIT, and we average out the scores, and then we'll have a grant review committee meeting where the participants in the grant review process or the reviewers will all meet and discuss the grants. And sometimes sometimes there's uniform agreement that either the grant application is excellent or not so excellent. And then also, and then sometimes there are disagreements, and so we talk those through, and then they make funding recommendations to OSIT, and then we fund the grants.
So that grant The grant review the committee that you create, how is that created and who's on that?
We have representatives from the state, and so from different state agencies as well as OSET staff. And so, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
So different state agents. So we had this last round, we had representation from the Department of Education, from let's see, from GoEd, and let me look up, and I'll have to remember exactly which state agencies we had representation from.
So how do those get selected? Do you select those, or do they just automatically appoint people every time?
We select them. We look at who has the right expertise, and then we ask them to participate.
Okay. And then lastly, what are you looking for when you're trying to award these? What kind of things are you looking for?
So we have a scoring rubric that we use, and the rubric we have in the grant solicitation we ask for them to provide us with information, and so some of the information we ask for are their technical things like their network designs, but we also ask for things such as the number of students that will be impacted. We ask for the difference in connectivity speed before and after. And then we also ask for things such as how distance learning or how learning through technology will change after the fact. So we don't want to just have connectivity for connectivity's sake, but we want to know how they are going to use increased connectivity to improve academic achievement and student learning. And so all of those factors go into the final score. We also want to know if they're going to be able to sustain whatever or continue to fund whatever upgrades they're making to their networks. And so we ask them, whether, about how they're going to continue to keep their network upgraded after they purchase their equipment.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair.
Thank you, Director. And I'm breaking up a little bit, so I apologize. I think there's internet connection issues here in Legislature building. So I have Assemblyman Watts up next, and I just wanted to remind Director Mitchell and the members of the committee, please keep it concise.
Great, will do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Assemblyman Watts for the record. I really appreciate that you mentioned GoEd in the response to the last question. I just wanted to ask really briefly, how do you see, especially with the connecting communities work that you're doing, how do you interact with GoEd on that? And then how do you see that and your other broadband programs working with the proposed infrastructure bank and federal funding from the last relief package that was passed in late December?
Thank you, Assemblyman Watts, for the question. Brian Mitchell for the record. GoEd is a very important partner for us, and we work together on infrastructure quite a bit. And so GoEd is more broadly interested in roads and rail and flight infrastructure. And then we are, I guess, are their broadband experts in helping to, when they have companies that are interested in relocating to Nevada, we can help them to understand what the broadband infrastructure is in the area that they are relocating to. So we work together very well. I think the infrastructure bank is going to be so important to our work in expanding broadband access throughout the state. We are currently reviewing a broadband strategic state plan for the state, and one of the recommendations in the state plan is to use funding from the infrastructure bank to continue to build out broadband infrastructure throughout the state that companies in both urban and rural areas will need in order to grow their businesses and continue to operate in Nevada and recruit new businesses. So I think the infrastructure bank is going to be so important to our efforts in broadband infrastructure. And then your question around federal broadband funding. We've been able to use some of the broadband funding thus far for infrastructure. The city of Las Vegas is an example. And we're currently working with the governor's finance office to establish priority projects for that funding, as well as work to coordinate all the different funding streams coming from the federal government around high priority projects.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And we have a question from Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Chair. And my question, Director Mitchell, it's actually, I heard some similar response to the question that Majority Leader Benitez Thompson asked. So going back to the STEM Workforce Development Grant, my question is, and in your response, you mentioned how how things have been adapted per the pandemic. But I'm going to ask how OSIT modifies and adapts the STEM Workforce Development Grant program based on lessons learned in the past. So not just this significant special pandemic, but just in general, how do you use lessons learned in the past on previous funding rounds to meet industry needs?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Miller, for the question. Brian Mitchell, for the record. I feel like there's lessons learned every time we do this. Every time we have a new round of funding, we modify our request for applications based on industry needs. And so we work closely with GOED and their research division in order to determine which are the STEM occupations that are most in need for workforce development by employers. And then I would also say that the STEM Talent Pipeline Grant Program, that's the one where there's the high school, the post-secondary, and the employer that starts in high school, and it's kind of a transition program to entry-level STEM workforce credentials. That was an adaptation of the STEM Workforce Challenge Grant Program that came out of some lessons learned, where we realized that there are kids who are on a post-secondary track who don't need our help. They're going to go to post-secondary and they just need to have a good program to be able to learn at. But then there's a lot of kids who, for many reasons, they have all the aptitude, but they don't go to a post-secondary program and they end up trapped in low-wage jobs. And so if we can capture those kids in high school and get them that credential, get them into that entry-level rung of the ladder, then once they have that, they'll be on a pathway to move up the ladder from there. And so that program there was an adaptation of something that we learned that we needed more of those kind of programs, and it's been really successful so far.
Thank you for that. One other point of clarification I'd like to ask is, what is the difference in focus between the STEM workforce development grants that are coming from the Office of OSET and the workforce development programs that are within the Office of Workforce Innovation? Can you make that distinction for us, please?
Sure. And I think, Brian Mitchell, for the record, thank you for the question. Our programs are, so our two workforce development programs are, first of all, they're focused on STEM occupations only, whereas the Office of Workforce Innovation has a broader focus on all occupations. And so that's one difference there. We have a bit more of a narrow focus. And then the second focus, with our STEM Workforce Challenge grants, we're focused, and our pipeline grants, we're focused more on building programs. Whereas it's my understanding that Owen has more focus on helping people through those programs. And so again, I think we have a sub-cabinet that's dedicated to workforce, as well as several informal working groups And so the Office of Workforce Innovation has more of a focus on work-based learning and apprenticeships, and then we support that by providing funding for high-quality programs that leverage those.
Director, can you just briefly respond, because I'm really trying to get at, is there any overlap? I understand the distinction you're making, but is there any overlap where the Office of Workforce Innovation is also working on STEAM?
No, there's not. We work together to try to make sure that we identify all the needs, and then each of us has a lane. But at the same time, we're not operating in silos where we don't, where we're each doing, different programs that aren't aligned. So as best as we can, we're working together to make sure that there's no overlap in the programs and the funding that we do.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Assemblywoman, and thank you, Director, for clarifying that. I have another question here from Assemblyman Levitt.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. Most of my questions were answered. I appreciate the majority leader and Senator Dennis asked most of my questions. My only thing that I didn't quite understand is, so if a specific city or school does not receive funding, is it because they just didn't apply? Is that how it works?
Do you have a question about a specific city?
Well, non-altruistically, I looked here and I didn't see Boulder City on there. And so I just was curious if they just maybe hadn't applied or if they're.
Assemblyman Levitt, Brian Mitchell for the record. I'll look into Boulder City and see if we have done any work in Boulder City. It's possible that Boulder City, as a part of the Clark County School District, didn't apply for any funding in that area, but I'll look into that and respond back to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And Senator Severs-Ganser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Question?
Yeah, thank you. So in looking at your STEM Workforce Challenge grants, the Workforce Development Grant Program, you've got a number of subsections or sub-programs underneath that. So the overall question is, how is the demand and could you use more money? These programs look like they're very successful. So I want to know if there's more demand for these programs than the money that we have. And then also you talk about dollars spent and some of the matching dollars that come in between the Workforce Talent Pipeline grants and also the Workforce Challenge grants. Do you have numbers as far as like associate degrees completed from the Workforce Challenge grants that are basically to look like community colleges and some education institutions? And then do you have any outcomes on students that are eventually hired when they go into the Workforce Pipeline grant program? So one program is around associate degrees. The other program looks like it's about training workforce for certain industries and potentially certain companies. So that data, and then kind of overall, what's the demand, and is there more demand than supply of funding? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Brian Mitchell for the record. In regard to your first question, we do generally get more demand for funding than we have funding available. In our most recent grant round, we had 4 STEM Workforce Challenge grants. We had $474,000 available, and we received over $1.5 million worth of applications for funding. And that is typical. With regard to your second question around the number of degrees completed out of the STEM Talent Pipeline program, we first awarded funding for that program about a year ago, and so we don't have outcome data for that quite yet. So I should be able to have data for that here in, I'm guessing, in about another year.
Okay, and then, so that was around the associates. What about the hire rate for the one when you're partnering with industry and they're doing internship type programs? Are you seeing those students being hired by the employers?
Thank thank you for the question, Assemblywoman. Excuse me, Senator. And I shouldn't try to walk and chew gum at the same time. So the talent pipeline program where the students are guaranteed to receive an interview. Thus far, we have those programs are just ramping up and getting started, and so the students are still in, and so we haven't had very many completions yet. So there isn't very much outcome data. However, with our STEM Workforce Challenge Grant program, which is the post-secondary program, the last time that we surveyed our grantees, there was a 94% of the students were employed following graduation in a related field to their to what they studied.
Thank you. That's helpful. And I think that those points of data are important. So once these programs are working for a while, I think it's a good idea to be able to show the success when individuals get hired or they do receive their associate degree and then go on to into the workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Severs-Gansert. Thank you, Director Mitchell. I believe that is all the questions that we had today on this budget and for you. And so I appreciate you presenting for us today. And I believe we are ready to move on to our next agenda item. So thank you, Director Mitchell. And up next, we have the budgets for the Governor's Office of Workforce Innovation. And I know we have Administrator Martino here to present a presentation on Owen. And Director Martino, in the interest of time, and as well as we have some kind of structural policy questions, I think, that are still, that a lot of us have questions on, but really for the purposes of this committee hearing, we want to address the budgets that are being presented. And we received the presentation, and we have reviewed the presentation and have it at our disposal. And so I don't think there's a need to walk through all 25 slides. If you want to just really briefly give an overview of what some of those slides are, but really we want to concentrate on your budgets. And then also we have some questions we definitely need to get answered. So if you want to proceed with that and do a brief overview of what that presentation was going to be.
Certainly. Just one moment, I'll share my screen. And I'll just go through real quickly, and I'll start just by saying good morning to everyone and introducing my other coworkers who I have with me in the meeting today. LaYoung Owen, Senior Program Development and Engagement Specialist, Zachary Height, Owen Strategic Data Manager, Maida Sanchez, our Grants and Policy Analyst, Andreas Fiju, our Policy Analyst, Richard Williams, our State Apprenticeship Director, and Karen Swove, our Strategist. So just in the interest of time, I'll just start here by just reiterating Owen's mission statement, which is to help drive a skilled, diverse, and aligned workforce in the state of Nevada by promoting cooperation and collaboration among key public and private entities focused on workforce development. And then from here on the next slide, Maida is going to take it over from here for this one.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Maida, Grants and Policy Analyst for the record. So just quickly, as we know, we want to get through this. So this is where we sit currently under the governor's office. So as you can see, Owen has a direct oversight over the governor's workforce development board. We provide support, programmatic support. The governor's workforce development board then provides programmatic oversight over our Microsoft as well as our industry sector councils. Owen also has our LifeWorks solution, which is made up of a steering team and a core team that we provide, that we work with, and that team is made up of our partner NOED, Theater, the Nevada Department of Education. So just quickly, our strategies are the same, really assessing workforce policies at the state level and providing support and direction for the implementation of federal workforce innovation and opportunity act dollars. We also strategies include designing career pathways, really scaling registered apprenticeship and other forms of workplace and emerging industries here within the state, leveraging real labor market and workforce data, and validating.
Ms. Sanchez, we just can't hear you at all.
You can't hear me at all? Okay.
It's breaking up. I don't know if it's a connectivity issue or a microphone issue, but you're breaking up.
Okay. You know, I hear actually a lot.
That's better. That's better.
Okay, I hear a lot of feedback on my end, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. I apologize. But those are our strategies. They're pretty straightforward. Wanted to touch upon some of our federal funding streams. So Owen, as you know, is a fairly newer agency, so we do have sub-grant federal funding as well as direct federal funding now. Some of our sub-grant federal funding that we received as a pass-through from DEER includes an occupational licensure reform grant and an Apprenticeship USA State Expansion grant here for the funding that you see. Closeout is actually around the corner. The first is in April, and then June of 2021. We also received quite a bit of federal funding from DEER through the Workforce Innovation Act. I was going to kind of go through the different accomplishments. We've picked up a lot of actually speed here in the last year around some of these. We've hosted several roundtables and engaged our community and our boards to the occupational licensing grant, and we actually have a report. Our Apprenticeship USA grant, we've also been able to diversify and move registered apprenticeship into both traditional and non-traditional, which we could speak to if you would like, as well as work plans for program year 18 and program year 19 for our workforce innovation dollars. You guys have access to those work plans. We provided them to the team. So I will not go through that, but if you guys have questions about any of those projects, we would love to share some of the cool stuff that we're working on. But I'll go ahead and kick it over to Isla, our employer engagement specialist, and she's going to talk about some of the direct federal funding that we've received.
Hello and good morning. Now, this is Isla Young for the record. Our Owen office, we've been very actively and aggressively pursuing other federal funds really to help address our global pandemic and the impacts of the health and economic impacts for our state. So over the last 6 to 12 months, we have been awarded, next slide, several new funding streams, and those the first was our Project Sandy, which was a Reimagine grant. And this grant was incredibly competitive. We have actually provided prior presentations on it, but it allowed us to bring in a little over $13.8 million into the state, specifically to help our dislocated workers and our workforce system. We just were awarded a rural healthcare H-1B grant on February 1st. So it's fresh, just given to us $2.5 million specifically to grow our healthcare providers in our rural areas. And then also a state apprenticeship expansion grant for $450,000, which will allow us to continue the work that we have been doing around non-traditional apprenticeship programs. Next slide. So I know that we are tight on time. Would you like me to go through the different federal funding streams that we received, just to give you a little more information about them?
Actually, I think we're going to have some specific questions since we have had the opportunity to review your presentation.
Okay.
I don't think you need to go into much detail.
Okay, so I'll just go right through them though. So our Project Sandy, as you know, we will be updating our workforce system with some of our online tools, and then also providing training for our dislocated workers. Next slide. This is just the model that we'll be using. CSN is created, and it's an amazing model, a holistic approach to helping our dislocated workers from the time of them figuring out, what we can help them move into as far as a new career, and then the steps that will be taken. But we're providing different options, very short training options, options that are a little longer that will actually help them transition into a brand new career path. And then for the folks that actually have the time and are able to spend an extended amount of time in school, they could get their degrees. So that will be the model that will be replicated throughout the state. The biggest piece being the fact that we have career navigators that will be really holding the hands of these folks, making sure that they feel like they have the support needed to successfully transition into something new. Next slide. This is just speaking to the Nevada Career Explorer, which is a tool that was launched in 2018. This is going to actually be enhanced and expanded, and we'll be building out a skills decoder. This will be Nevada specific and will allow us to look at folks' skills and translate those skills and experience into credentials and credit-bearing programs. One of the key pieces is we have partnered with GoEd to develop out the skills match. And this was just a bridge tool, which will be available to Nevadans to look at their current skills, many that have been in the same work or job for 20 plus years, really need help understanding where they are, what skills they do have, what is transferable into a different career path, and then of course exposing them to what these different high growth, high demand career paths are in Nevada, and then how that links up with actual training opportunities. So this will be a key piece in really helping to empower Nevadans as they're going through this transition. Next slide. As I mentioned, we just received literally February 1st, the H-1B Rural Healthcare Grant. This will be providing training programs in about 10 different healthcare areas. And so we have partnered with Nevada Works and will be serving as a prime on this grant. And the fundings will be working with Nevada Works, with Nevada Hospital Association, with our NSHE and community colleges. Great Basin, Truckee Meadows, and Western Nevada College. And then we also have employer partners who have signed on that will actually be, once these folks are complete their training, we'll have actual placement with employers. Next slide. And then our registered apprenticeship, a huge part of what we do with Owen, really looking at developing out. There's an amazing amount of work already happening in the traditional apprenticeship areas. We're very interested in helping to grow and develop out the non-traditional. So that would be healthcare, IT, advanced manufacturing, and also green and renewable energy apprenticeship programs. So, we're partnering with our work-based learning coordinators throughout the state, with our higher education partners, and we have a lot of really exciting things being shaped and launched as we speak. Next slide. And I will turn this over to Sarah, I'm sorry, Maita?
Yes, so Maita Sanchez for the record. So here, we just wanted to briefly look at our budgets. So BA 1004, this was 2021. As you could see, we had quite a percentage here from federal funding from WIOA dollars, as well as our state apprenticeship grant, our OL grant, and then our general fund. Moving forward, our budget has diversified quite a bit in regards to the different federal funding streams that we are receiving. So we could see that a large amount of our funding will be from Project Sandy and the upcoming biennium, as well as our other federal dollars that we've received from the H-1B grant, rural healthcare. We also received some funding from NGA, our state general fund, and then of course our WIOA work plans. So moving straight into the governor's recommended budget. So the governor's recommended budget is that we transfer BA 1004 and 3270, which you'll hear about here in a bit, for NPower from the Office of the Governor to the Department of Employment, Rehabilitation and Training, DETR. This will require a budgetary bill draft request to update NRS 223.085 through 820. So the rationale for the realignment is to really streamline our operational efficiencies and to avoid any duplicative administrative work. So the enhancements are listed here. It is to reclassify all the 5 PCNs from non-classified to either classified or unclassified positions. It's also to transfer, there's a transfer for a BPA and a management analyst also, and then you'll also see the transfer of Owen to DETR and the costs there that are associated with that. And then we'll just go ahead and move into budget 3270, and I'll kick it off to Zach, who will go ahead and walk us through NPower.
Thank you, Zachary Height from Owen for the record. So to discuss NPower, NPower is the Nevada P22 Workforce Research Data System, or commonly known as the State Longitudinal Data System. NPower is a tool that we use to match and link data between different state agencies that will help us create a de-identified longitudinal record for purposes of analysis, research, and reporting. Our current data partners include the Nevada Department of Education, the Nevada System of Higher Education, Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation, and our newly onboarded adult education partner. So we currently use NPower to match the data between the state agencies to create longitudinal records, as well as using it as a matching tool. We're running biweekly matches for the Nevada Department of Education. And as I mentioned previously, adult education data was onboarded into the NPower system that allows us to match adult ed participants to other agency data, looking at things like wages for completers, or if they participate in any sort of post-secondary credential attainment in the NSHE system. And so adult education reports federally on those numbers and outcomes. So NPower allows them to match their data to other agency data in an automated way. And so it relieves a lot of the manual efforts that adult ed was going through in terms of matching their data previously. Next slide, please. We also onboarded some new career and technical education data into NPower. So NDE data that's exposed into the NPower system is currently high school graduate data. And so we were able to bring on a new CTE table that's developed by the CTE office within NDE and match that to records within the NDE tables as well as NSHE tables. And so through the onboarding of CTE data, we are able to create a new CTE concentrator graduates report that helps the CTE office and districts, CTE offices as well, report on their concentrators, their graduates, their completers and certificate earners for their programs of study that occur within the state and within their districts. Next slide. So regarding the budget, the enhancements that are in the recommended budget pretty similar to 1004. There is the transfer of NPower from the governor's office to DETR. And then also the reclassification of the one FTE personnel that's non-classified management analyst to a classified management analyst 2. And then there's a transfer of positions. So the position that's supposed to be under 3270 is the business process analyst 3 that's currently in 1004. So we're transferring that position into the 3270 budget and transferring the management analyst position out of 3270 to 1004. So it's basically just a personnel swap. And after the reclassification of those positions, the transfer and the position swap is the next thing. Next slide.
So with that, next is the summary of Owen's key accomplishments. Sorry, for the record, this is Ann Sarah Martino. And then the next slide is for apprenticeship. And with that, State Apprenticeship Director, Rich Williams.
Ms. Martino, like I said, we have the data available and the presentation that you presented. And unfortunately, being limited on time, we want to get to some very key questions that came up from the data that you presented us and from the presentation. And so I'm going to jump right into that. Now, members, feel free to reach out to the agency now that we have all the contact information to get any specific questions clarified. But I want to try to, as quick as possible, move through some very key questions that we really would like to have clarified and get on the record. And I'll start. And this goes to a couple of areas, but I need to describe the Owens collaboration between the industry sector councils and the Governor's Workforce Development Board, and how these collaborations would benefit from a transfer to DETR.
Andreas Fiju, our policy analyst, handles that area and is prepared to discuss the Governor's Workforce Development Board and the industry sector councils.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is Andres Fijo from OWEN. I am the administrator of the Governor's Workforce Development Board. The industry sector councils, we are in the process of reconstituting them. There are 8 of them, but we're looking to prioritize and bring together the health and IT and manufacturing and logistics councils together. And so historically, they have reported to the Governor's Workforce Development Board. In terms of transferring to DETR, from my understanding, I don't think anything would change in terms of how they operate, but we are in the process of reconstituting them.
Okay, thank you. And another question I have is, in 2017, Owen defined one of its short-term goals to increase the number of apprentices in the state by 10%. Did Owen meet this goal? That's pretty much a yes or a no.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is Richard Williams, State Apprenticeship Director. I don't have that number from 2017, but I can tell you that there are currently 6,046 active apprentices in the state of Nevada right now. And that number fluctuates daily, but that's the number as of Friday.
And if you could, for staff and the members, get what that increase was and if we met that goal or not. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Sorry, I was muted. While we have you, can you explain to us how Owen's work on apprenticeships would benefit from a transfer to DETR?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Richard Williams for the record. By transferring over to DETR, I believe we could use those resources to actually help enhance the, the maneuverability and, the resources that DETR has to support our efforts. Right now, we have limited staff, and I think any resources that could enhance that would be good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And next up, I believe we have Chair Carlton.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'll make this pretty brief. There have been a lot of conversations with Owen since it was first established about the apprenticeship programs. And I do have some concerns when I hear terms like non-traditional apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is apprenticeship. If it's not, then it's work study. So I think I'd like to have just a very, very brief description of what you see as a non-traditional apprenticeship program. And in the history of the post-secondary education component, Owen did come forward and ask for funding. None of that funding was expended in 19, and very little was expended in 20. So I have concerns about asking for dollars that don't hit the ground and don't help folks. So those are my 2 concerns. The second one we can take offline. It's a very complicated answer, I'm sure. But the first one, I really need to know what non-traditional apprenticeship is being defined as.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Richard Williams for the record, State Apprenticeship Director. Yes, Assemblyman or Mrs. Carlton. So non-traditional in the sense, I agree with you. A registered apprenticeship is a registered apprenticeship, and that non-traditional word is thrown out a lot. But The way I understand it is traditional registered programs are the traditional construction trades, and anything outside of that would be non-traditional. As recently we just got an occupation in a program for T-Mobile. That would be, in my opinion, a non-traditional program. And there's a few that are in the pipeline right now, working with Renown. So basically, short answer is anything that's outside the construction trades would be, in my opinion, considered a non-traditional apprenticeship program.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, but it is a registered apprenticeship program and follows all the federal guidelines.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry, Richard Williams, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Appreciate that. And next up, I believe we have Assemblywoman Tulls.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try and keep my questions brief. Just looking at the transfers anticipated of accounts, if we were to consolidate Owen into Dieter, what is the bottom line overall savings that would be anticipated by those transfers? My initial reading didn't look like it was a whole lot, but I just wanted to confirm. Do we have the actual number?
This is Sarah Martino for the record. There actually is, it's going to end up being sort of a wash in terms of the savings, but the benefits that are expected to be realized from the transfer based on the governor's recommendation is to avoid the duplicative work between agencies and streamline operational efficiencies. So that would be the benefit rather than necessarily a cost savings.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I can add a follow-up question that ties in well to that. So, not a great deal of financial savings, but looking at the presentation that we had from Dieter, certainly had a whole new appreciation for how full their plate is beyond just, the obvious focus of unemployment insurance and fraud, but all the other things that they do. And then, unfortunately, we didn't get to your slides here, but looking at your accomplishments, you have a couple slides going over all that you do in Owen to really help Nevadans get work and get trained into new career pathways and, our diversified economy. So I'm just wondering, will we potentially lose some of that benefit with both of these agencies having such full plates and such important work, particularly in the midst of this pandemic? Is there any concerns about, I understand consolidating, but for aspects that are repetitive, but there's also so much that each agency does. Is there a potential that we're going to lose some of that?
Isla Young, our program engagement specialist, can help me answer this question. But I do think that there will be some extra layers that we will have to go through in order to get things out onto the streets in terms of funding and dollars and our programs. And then I can let Isla add on from there.
Thank you, Aunt Sarah. This is Isla Young for the record. The reality is our Owen office really is serving as a convener. So our job as we work throughout the state and really pulling together the various state agencies, our community partners, our nonprofits, is incredibly important as we're dealing with these really serious issues in our state. So as far as, the governor's recommendation to have us move into Dieter, we of course support it, but we know that we're doing really good work and that whether we are still a standalone under the governor's office or with Dieter, that good work will continue. So it's hard to say, but we do know that no matter where we end up, we will continue to do the good work.
Thank you, Ms. Young. I appreciate that. And thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Tulls. Senator Dondero Loop, I believe you had some questions about post-secondary education credentials.
Thank you, Chair. I did, but I think my question was answered, but I'll ask it again just for clarification. Can you tell us how Owen's work on those post-secondary credentials will benefit from that transfer to Dieter? Will you confirm that again, please? Thank you.
I think Isla was going to answer that. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
Oh, sure. Isla Young for the record. The work around the credentialing piece, the stackable credentials, all of those pieces that will be incredibly valuable for our Nevadans, whether they are dislocated or underemployed, really is in partnership with our NG system. So we're actively in the process of doing that and really looking at how can we enhance those offerings, how can we make sure they are aligned to the high growth, high demand areas in Nevada that have been identified. And forgive me if I sound like a broken record, but whether we're our standalone Owen piece or under the Dieter umbrella, we definitely will continue that work. That is such a key piece and part of making sure that we're able to meet Nevadans where they are. And many of them do not have time to go through a very extended amount of training, but these short certification options really do provide a way to move people back into the workforce. So hopefully that answers your question.
So but you think that it will benefit for that to be transferred into that Dieter department rather than being standalone as we move forward?
I believe that whether we are a standalone or under Dieter, that same work would occur. So I don't know that it would be,
okay.
Yeah, but.
Thank you, that answers it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Senator Dondero Loop, for the question. And I think Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno had a question while you're up, Ms. Young, on the Sandy program.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and it's two quick questions. Could you please explain the future strategic orientation of the ON and the context of Project Sandy and the contrast it would have with other workforce development programs in our state, such as OTIS and GOED?
Forgive me, this is Isla Young. I just want to clarify your question. Are you asking if we will be working with those entities?
That and the contrast between what the Sandy project will be doing.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But OTIS and GOED are already doing. And then there's other community organizations that also have workforce programs. So how are we going to benefit from Sandy?
Oh, it will be, so there's several layers to the Sandy grant. We do partner with the Governor's Office of Economic Development, a big partnership with our library system throughout the state of Nevada. We're partnering with our NG system. And the reality is each of them play a very distinct role in how we will be implementing the grant. In addition to those organizations, we're also working with nonprofits in the state and our workforce board. So it's a very multi-partner, over 20 throughout the state. And Owen has played a key role in really pulling those partners together and working on these contracts. So we're just about done getting all those contracts through the process. And those will continue as we move forward.
And it may be in your PowerPoint, but if it's not, into the committee, the nonprofits that you're working with throughout the state, I'm very much interested in knowing the whole list of those nonprofits that you're working with. But my last question, Mr. Chair, is could you please explain why Owen did not expend the legislative approved amount of WIOA funds in 2019 and 2020?
Yes, ma'am. This is Ann Sarah Martina for the record. During different parts of Owen's time, we had different leadership. And so there was an approved spending plan from Owen's first director that when it carried over to the second director, that second director wanted to make sure it was aligned with the governor's priorities and vision. And so there was a delay in those funds getting out. And then now, of course, we've had a change and we've been without a director since last summer. So once Owen's staff found out that those funds hadn't been expended, we began working on it since that time this summer to get those funds out and implement the projects and submit new spending plans that could be approved.
And you feel the new spending plan will correct the problem? So when I hear funds not being expended, I see people that aren't being helped to get jobs. So with this new plan, will that fix the problem? So we will be able to help people get the training they need to get on the pathway to gainful employment?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, and thank you, Ms. Martina. Next, I have a question from Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief, and it goes into the move from the governor's office to Dieter and what Assemblywoman Tolles was talking about. And I was just curious as to some of the challenge that you're trying to overcome by making the move. Did you have some barriers that you're trying to fix in this move? Because it seems like it was just done 3 years ago, and curious, what the issues were.
My understanding is that the governor's recommendation mainly focuses on streamlining operational activities and trying to avoid duplicate administrative work. So that's the benefit of it. And I hope that answers your question.
Was there some duplicate work? Is that what some of the challenges that we had?
I believe in terms of duplicate work, when it comes to payment of invoices and between the service that we use with the State Administrative Services Division and then the review that Dieter does. And I have the Administrative Services Division on with me, and they might be able to elaborate a little bit more.
That's okay. I can take it offline. We're crushed for time. I appreciate the question and the answer, Mr. Chair and Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Up next, Assemblyman Levitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, my question is brief, but and it can be answered offline if you don't have an answer. So as far as apprenticeship programs, you talked a little bit about how you're working in higher ed, post high school. Is there a potential to partner with the school districts to integrate some type of apprenticeship programs at the high school level?
Hey, Mr. Chair, this is Richard Williams, State Apprenticeship Director for the record. I know it's in process right now. We're working with the high schools. I believe Ms. Young may have some more information on that, but that's definitely in the pipeline right now, Assemblyman Levitt.
This is Isla Young. I'll just add to what Rich said. We absolutely are partnering heavily with the Department of Education throughout the state, and in particular with our school districts. The importance of creating a pipeline for our young people and awareness at a very young age as to what is available to them is a priority. And I think as we're looking at creating that pipeline, we have to really make sure that our young people are aware of apprenticeships as an option for a career path. We have been partnering with NG in particular because they also receive some funding to develop out the apprenticeship readiness program. So young people, as they're going through their CTE programs in their high schools, can become exposed at a young age, understand the skill sets that will be needed, and go through some preparation in order to transition into a registered apprenticeship upon graduation. So that is very much a part of what we're working on. And it really, as Brian Mitchell mentioned with his STEM presentation, creating a pipeline from a very young age is incredibly important for successful transition into career paths.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for that question, Assemblyman Levitt. That's a very important point and one that is near and dear to me. And thank you for Ms. Young and Mr. Williams for clarifying that, the work that you're doing there. So appreciate that. I have the last question I want to ask before we wrap this up, and it's specific to the budget 3270, 20 reporting, workforce reporting, and say along the lines of the theme that we're trying to dig into today. I want to know what benefits would be realized from P20 being transferred back to Dieter after it was moved from Dieter.
Thank you for the question, Chair. This is Zachary Height, for the record. I specifically work with the Empower system, the state longitudinal data system. I think there's some realized benefits to moving the 3270 budget to Dieter, mainly in some of the expertise that they have and resources that they have that a small office like Owen doesn't. So an IT team and as a partner within Empower as well, they have some capabilities that are absent in a small office like Owen. But for the most part, I believe that the operations of the Empower system and the administration of it will remain mostly unchanged and unimpacted by the move. I see it as mostly an administrative move of just moving the budget underneath Dieter. But there are resources within Dieter that Owen can probably utilize in the future that will help more efficient use of the budget or data capabilities, I think.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. Well, with that, I think that is everything on this agenda item and these budgets. And I appreciate the detailed presentation that you provided us and that we've had a chance to go over and will continue to go over. And we will have, I believe we'll have some further questions and we'll be talking with staff and then you'll probably might even be hearing from some of the members to get some clarification on some issues. So I appreciate that. And that will be the wrap up but this agenda item, which moves us to our last agenda item, and that is public comment and broadcast services. Could you take a look if anyone's in public comment, and we'll give them just about 1 minute for folks to call in and sign on if they haven't already.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Chair. We do have one caller in the queue. Just one moment while I queue them up. Excuse me, caller with the last 3 digits, 048. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin, and you will also want to increase your volume if possible.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Madam Co-Chair, members of the committee. Stephen Cohen for the record. Stephen with a V. Cohen, C-O-H-E-N, as in the Assemblywoman, no relation. Just wanted to briefly comment on Budget 1004. In the governor's state of the state, he allocated, if my memory is correct, $75 million for workforce development. I was wondering from Owen if there's a possibility to allocate a portion of that towards innovative opportunities for folks with disabilities. With that, thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam Co-Chair, and I yield.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen.
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working, and there are no additional callers at this time.
Thank you, Broadcast Services. So with that, I think we will move to adjourn. But before we do, I want to remind the members that up next is an IFC meeting. All the members should have received the materials. And I believe we're going to be staying on this particular link now. I think that we were going to have a different link, but now we'll be staying on this link. And so we will hang loose on this link, I believe, while VPS sets up the new meeting. And we will be back in, I believe, about 15 minutes. So VPS or any of the staff, if that is correct, that would have us reconvening at 9:56, or I guess we could just make it at even 10 o'clock. And does that work for Broadcast Services? Does that give you enough time to do that? And then staff, fiscal staff, does that work for everyone involved?
For fiscal staff, Mr. Chair, that works for us.
And Mr. Chair, this is Broadcasting Productions. That should work fine for us too.
All right, great. So members, please cameras on in your seats well before 10 o'clock.